And I have my
Let's just
questions
try.
here. So, okay, Alison, ons gaan dit doen. Okay, is jy reg? Here we go.
Ja.
Haar doel is om 'n verskil te maak en sy het met talle duisende mense gepraat oor haar inspirerende, tog pynlike verhaal. Sy het internasionale gehore in meer as 20 verskillende lande toegespreek, insluitend die VSA, Australië, Europa, Asië en Afrika. En sy is my baie spesiale gas vandag vir Vroue Maand. Dis Alison Botha. Thank you so much for still sharing your story, Alison, and for chatting to me today.
Thank you, Francois. Nice to meet you and nice to be here. Thank you.
Nice to meet you virtually as well. It can't be easy to go back to the brutal, cruel torture you went through in your life, Alison. Vir die wat nou nog nie jou storie ken nie, can you take us back to the horror attack that happened in Port Elizabeth in 1994? You were raped, stabbed 37 times and 16 attempts were made to slit your throat. Hoe het jy in die eerste plek in hierdie nagmerrie situasie beland?
I mean, it's not a nice story to talk about, but it has been almost 28 years. So I do talk about it a lot because I've always believed that if I could warn someone else, if someone else could maybe not be a victim because they hear my story and maybe they're a little bit more careful, but also just to maybe give hope that even through this kind of thing, we can actually have a happy life afterwards. So I do talk about it. Yes, it was in December 94. I was a young girl living in PE and I was abducted outside my house and taken to the bush where these two guys stabbed me. They, as you say, raped me. They both raped me, stabbed me in the stomach, something like 35 times. The doctor couldn't actually tell. And then slit my throat 16 times. So it was miraculous that I survived, definitely. There were many miracles that saved my life. And yeah, I suppose that's why people were so interested in my story in the beginning, but I like to think that I'm still telling my story to people because it gives some inspiration to us all in our difficult times.
Definitely. No one could have believed that anyone with such severe injuries could live, but miraculously you did. Vertel my hoe jy jou kop en jou keel bymekaar probeer hou het, and what goes through your mind in a make or break moment like that?
I know, it's a bit hectic. When I tell the story, you must remember that when you're in the moment, I don't think you're processing it as much as people who are listening, because I often have audiences listen to my story and they go, they can't imagine it. But I think it's the same as, I mean, I'm a mom. If I can't imagine losing one of my children, but there are people who survive it. It's not nice, but you survive it. So I think it's similar when it happens to you, you have no choice but to cope. So you do. So it was more just, yes, it was more my will to survive that I had to hold my intestines and everything in with one hand to my tummy, and I had to hold my head on because they'd cut the muscle down the side of my neck. When I stood up, it flopped right back, so I had to hold my head on. So I don't remember thinking what I was doing. I remember knowing I was badly injured. I remember thinking I just want to survive and get to the nearby road. But it was only afterwards when I played it back that I actually realized what had physically happened in order for me to survive.
You overcame the challenge to share your experience by applying your own ABC to your life. What does this stand for, and who help hierdie mindset jou?
Okay, my ABC show, it sounds very simple. It actually started because I was sharing my story with people, and I suppose I wanted them to learn through my experience without having to go through my experience themselves. And so I was trying to see, as I was healing myself and as I was going for therapy, and I was learning things about, like when a terrible thing happens, learning from it doesn't make the terrible thing go away, but it does at least make us feel that we got something out of it that we can use in our lives as we move forward. So as much as that night was awful and probably the worst night of my life, it taught me so much in my life that I've been able to now gather. So the ABC is what I call my attitude, belief, and choice. And I think the biggest thing that I realized through what happened to me is that I'm not always going to control everything that happens to me. I think I'm someone who likes to, I don't know, I just like to think that I've got control over things. And here comes these two guys, they come into my life and basically try and kill me. So to know that I was in control of certain things was a great comfort to me. And it was a sense of power, I suppose. Know that I controlled my attitudes, my beliefs, the choices I made. Those are the three things. And obviously when I do my talks, I go into them more, but just valuing ourselves, an attitude of value of ourselves, believing in ourselves, the choices that we make, to not hold on to the anger, because those only harm us, not the other people.
Not everyone has the natural talent to inspire others from bad experiences. Hoe het jy dit reg gekry om deur jou boodskap mense waardevolle lesse, hierdie waarvan jy nou praat, te help leer en oplossings te vind vir die uitdagings wat hulle daagliks in die gesig moet staar?
Weet jy, Francois, I actually don't know because I'm a very nervous public speaker. When I was at school, I really struggled to even give orals, just to the classmates. So it really was not something I chose to get into. It was something that I think because I felt that I could help people. It almost felt like the story this had happened to me, but it was a story for everyone. It was something I almost had to share. And in the beginning, I just thought it was going to be once or twice. I didn't realize it was going to take me around the world. But I have to say, the more times I do it, I still get nervous. So I don't want to say it gets easier, but I think knowing that good comes out of it when I do share. And once I'm up there sharing, then I feel better about it and I connect with the audience. And that actually blesses me too. So it's very much a win-win situation where I get as much as I give to the audience, and knowing that they are getting something. That I've had so many emails and stories from people, and where they shared with me their stories, and maybe something that I said struck them at a time that it mattered to them. I mean, it's incredible. It's a purpose in my life. What I would have been doing if this hadn't happened, I don't know.
Purpose. In 1998, Penguin Books published your story, I Have Life, as well as For the Tough Times in 2002. After what you've been through, Alison, why do you think your will to live was so strong?
Well, when I share about my ABC and I talk about attitude, now I was brought up by a single mom from when I was quite young. And I think because she was a single mom, she really wanted to consciously make sure that there were things that came through to my brother and I in her upbringing that we didn't lack because she was only one parent. And one of the things was that we would have value of ourselves. She really wanted us to know that were special and valuable. So she would often, I remember when I was little, she would go down and hold my shoulders and look me in my eyes and say, Alison, you're special. And I never meant that I never took it that I was special better than other people, just that I'm unique. And I've always had that intrinsic sense of value of myself. I think it came from her initially, and perhaps later on in my own, self-evolvement and whatever. I've always known, I haven't always liked everything about myself, but I've always valued myself. And when I play that night over in my mind, I believe that is why I got up to fight, to live, because I was worth fighting for. And that is why I find it so vital to share my message with people, because none of us know when we're going to be fighting our big dark bush. It will be different for all people. It'll be a health situation. It'll be a financial situation. You'll lose a loved one. It might be a crime like mine. We have to prepare ourselves beforehand and know that we would be worth fighting for too, if it was us,
Hoe het jy dit reg gekry om na hierdie tragiese, tog hoopvolle verhaal wat jy nou deel, fisies en geestelik weer te herstel?
Listen, it was a lot of therapy. I don't want people to look at me and say, I wish I could be like Alison, because it's time, it's therapy, a lot of support. I have faith in God. And I think that also people sometimes blame God when bad things happen. But for me, he also gave me all the strength to get through that. So I can't exactly blame him for it. So I think it's finding the good things. I am a naturally positive person. I will give myself that. And I think that did help me to want to find the positive in this. I won't lie. I went through a time of depression. I went through a time I think what held me in my depression was I wanted to not have had it happen. I wanted it all to go away. And that was just kept me stuck because I couldn't go back and be the Alison I was before. But that's all I wanted at the time. And it was only when I started to accept that, yes, it has happened. It's not nice, but I have to deal with it. And I can actually now control. That what I said earlier on about the control. Yes, I can't control what happened, but I can control my way forward. I could control also how angry I was with them, because that was actually holding me back. They weren't feeling it. They weren't going to feel if I was angry, but I would. It was all those kind of things that through therapy, and it was a decision. In the end, we make a decision, and we do control those decisions as hard as they are. If we want to be happy, it's a choice that we can make for ourselves.
Ons kan nie daai keuses ignoreer nie. Ons moet die bil by die horings pak, soos ons sê in Afrikaans. Let's talk about Alison the movie, a documentary built around an intimate interview. And why did you decide to protect the film rights of your story until coming to an agreement with director Uga Carlini?
I think the book, Francois, was something that I always wanted to do because I am a writer myself. I like writing. And so I had always wanted to write a book myself. So writing was a natural thing for me to say yes to. I did it with Marianne Tam, a ghostwriter, and she was very sensitive to doing it in my voice, so it felt like it was my story. Movie and film is a whole different thing, and you've got to release your control to letting them, create something. Because I mean, in a book you can write 3 pages to explain one feeling, and movies you've just got to get it right in the scene. So it's something that I just didn't feel strongly about enough, or trust anyone enough until I met Uga. And when I met Uga, I think we just connected. We felt like, sisters from a soul mother somewhere, because and I think that what I saw in her is she had the right reason for wanting to make the movie. It wasn't just to tell the terrible story. It was so that the movie, if someone watches it, it will actually inspire as well. And that's, for me, it's an amazing story to tell, but there's no point in telling it over and over again if something doesn't come out of it. And so it was difficult doing the movie. I'll tell you, it was difficult because it was quite a lot of years later, and it was needing to detail. And the reenactment scenes that they did with Christia Visser, the actress who played me, I didn't see until I sat in the theatre watching it. I was worried. I was worried that I was going to have flashbacks, or that I didn't know how I was going to react. But the lovely thing is that how I did react was almost like an audience member. Instead of it being me on the screen, it was this brave girl. And when she was doing things like writing their names in the sand, I was like with everyone else going, she's actually got her head together. She kept calm. So for the first time, I was able to actually look at myself and almost be amazed that I was able to get through that night. So it was quite nice to be able to have that moment, because for me, as I said earlier, when you live it yourself, you don't realize really how incredible it actually was.
And that brave girl was you. I know the movie divulged a lot, but what has happened in Alison's life since that day?
Okay, so I did. The trial was the first thing that had to happen. So they were arrested and they were sent to jail for life, which was it doesn't make the trauma easy, or it doesn't make the trauma go away, but it does certainly mean that I'm not going to bump into them in the street somewhere. I know that they're at least in jail. I then continued with my life in trying to go back to my old job, but then the talks were actually something that became my job, not, as I said, out of choice, but just because people were asking me. I did then meet someone who was going through a difficult time himself. And it sounds quite bizarre, but it was almost, I was so tired of being the only one with the problem. When I started making myself go out again, when I was trying to get out of my depression, everyone always wanted to just talk to me about what had happened to me and, are you okay? And then I met this guy, Tini, and he was going through quite difficult times himself. He'd been abused as a child. And so for me, it was like, oh, someone else with a problem. Yay. And so I could talk to him and kind of connect with him. And so that's how we connected. And then we fell in love and we did get married. So, and he traveled with me around the world for the first few years. We then did have children, which was one of the biggest miracles, really, because when they were asked why did they stab me in my abdomen, 35 times, Franz du Toit, the elder one of the two, said, no, he'd been trying to ruin my female organs. I don't know why he was doing that, but and he had stabbed my uterus. And the doctors had said to me, I don't know, they didn't know if I'd be able to have children because the uterus had been stabbed, it had been damaged, maybe it would give problems if I was trying to fall pregnant. So miraculously, I was able to have my own children, 2 boys, which I don't take lightly. The fact that I'm a boy mom, I think, is very important to me because I want to raise men who will honor women, But Daniel is already 18. I can't believe it. He's already out of the house. And Matthew's 15 and very blessed. I'm no longer married. Tini and I did divorce. And I think that's really just an indication again to people that, we have our mountains all the time. It's not like you have one and then suddenly you get signed off and someone says to you, fine, you know, no more worries for you. We continually have issues and obstacles that we face. It's just, yeah, it's just about reminding ourselves that we choose how we face.
A story of magic, monsters, and hope like none other, and proof that we can be the heroes in our own stories. And you mentioned now Christy Fisher stars as young Alison in the reenactment scenes. What did you think of her acting, and why was she chosen to portray you in this fairy tale inspired visual?
Christy was awesome, of course, because she's beautiful and thin and everything. So I was very happy that she was playing me. But I wasn't actually part of the choosing the actresses and everything. You know, I did my interview with them, and then the rest of the creation of the movie. I mean, I knew what was going on, but I wasn't part of everything. So I wasn't part of the decision to choose her. But I know why they chose her. They had a few different actresses coming in. I think that Uga said the reason that they liked her is she didn't over the scene that they did when they were going in for their audition was the scene in the car when the guy first opens the car and puts the knife to her throat and says, you know, move over. And all the other girls, and Uga didn't tell them how to do it. She just said, react naturally how you would. And of course, everyone would react differently, wouldn't they? I mean, I often say to people, you don't know if that happened to you, how you would react. And most of the other girls reacted quite violently and lashing out and screaming, where Christia was able to show in her face how petrified she was, but didn't react in any physical way, which is how I had reacted. And I think that's what struck that she was maybe similar to me in that way. But she was very good, yeah, lovely girl.
And Alison also made history by becoming the first South African film to be selected for the iconic Los Angeles-based film festival Dances with Films. And you share this lovely quote on your website: I have always hoped that by sharing my own journey with others, it would give them hope and courage for their own. Dink jy hierdie film het dit ook reg gekry in jou storie, in die breë trekke daarvan?
Ja, ek glo so, Francois, because like I said, I chose Uga. Well, I agreed to work with Uga on the film because I think that she had that same feeling. That, I mean, movies are wonderful. I love movies. I mean, movies are her world. But to actually create a movie that you can actually have an impact on people's lives is massive. And it's an opportunity that you have when you have people sitting watching your movie. So for Uga, she had once sat in an audience listening to my talk. And she had actually felt how the audience had changed, how they were listening. So, because it's a gripping story, let's face it. And she said she wanted people to sit in the movie feeling that same way. And so I believe she has got it. I mean, we still now get messages from people because it's online, so people can watch it on. I'm not actually sure. I think it's Showmax and Amazon Prime, all those ones. But I get people making TikToks in Spanish. I mean, I don't even recognize. I can't understand them. They're just basically telling people about the movie that they've seen, which is Alison. So, I mean, one lady got 3.6 million views on one of her videos that she did about me. So you should go on TikTok and have a look, Alison Botha, and you'll find all these millions of people doing videos about it, which I think it's just spreading, isn't it? Without me even having to be there to tell my story. That's what's wonderful about having the book and the movie, that people are actually being impacted without me even knowing it.
En 28 jaar later, en hier gaan jy sommer viral. The manner in which you survived, Alison, your inner strength and the determination is admirable, but how did you get to a place of lack of bitterness after everything you've been through? Hoe vergewe mens daai mense?
You know, this is tough because it is something that I struggled with. I felt sorry for myself. I blamed them for everything that I was feeling that was negative. They'd scarred my body. It was when I was depressed and everything. And I mean, there's still moments now, I must be honest. But I think when I was dealing with myself at the time and trying to find a way forward, I remember actually sitting down, I was by myself at home, and I remember saying to myself, why did you fight so hard to live if you're going to live like this? If you're going to be depressed and never go out with your friends and why did you fight so hard to live? And I think I instinctively knew then that I had to find it in myself to fight to live a life that was at least worthy of having fought to live it. And that was when I knew that the depression was really holding me back. And the reason for the depression was my anger at them. And so to forgive them was not, I think I struggled with it because they A, hadn't ever said they're sorry, and B, I didn't want my forgiveness to mean that they didn't have to be punished for what they'd done. I think I came to a new acceptance for my own self of my forgiveness, is that the forgiveness was for me. And I forgive them because I think they had no clue what they were doing. I hope they find some understanding and solace and path of their own to their own forgiveness. But for me, I didn't want to carry the anger anymore. I didn't want to be angry because I was going to suffer and the people in my world were going to suffer, not them. And so that is why I think I was able to put down that anger, hoping that it would just help me in my journey.
And I must mention, in 1995, you were also awarded for the prestigious Rotarian Paul Harris Award for Courage Beyond the Norm. In the same year, you were the first recipient of the Femina magazine's Woman of Courage Award.
Ja.
Wat sal jy as jou superpower as vrou beskryf na alles wat jy in jou lewe deurgemaak het en oorkom het?
Oh, goodness. I think it's just to be woman is superpower. I mean, we ladies know, sorry, Francois, but on this. But I think that maybe it's also, the things that we always laugh at about being women. We always laugh at the fact that we can do so many things and multitask and, be on the phone and doing one thing and stirring and stopping the child from getting up and all those things. But I think that is our superpower, is that we are capable far beyond what we sometimes believe of ourselves. So for me, having gone through this and seen that I survived it, it's an amazing place to be in, knowing my life going forward, that I can actually get through anything. I know it already because I've been through what I have. So it's a wonderful strength to have inside myself, knowing that I will be able to cope with whatever comes my way, because it's a choice that I make.
Dis 'n keuse,
yeah.
alweer. En as daar een ding is wat ons uit Alison Botha se storie geleer het, is dit, maak nie saak wat die omstandighede is nie, jy beheer altyd jou houding, jou oortuigings en die keuses wat jy maak. Wat het gebeur net terloops met paroolvoorwaardes vir daai 2 mans wat skuldig bevind is aan hierdie wandade, en het daai petisie wat jy ook op jou website gedryf het dit gehelp?
Ek glo so, I hope so. It's still there. I'm going to actually tell you that now, if you don't mind. It's on Go Petitions, is the only website that's still active. So if you go on www.go petitions and search Alison Botha, it's still an active petition that you please sign, because whenever they come up, what happens in the parole system in South Africa is they can apply. There's quite a large panel of people who actually have to assess them and interview and whatever. If it gets suggested by that panel of people that they should get parole, it goes to the minister, and only the minister can actually parole them. Up until now, they have been applying, but it's always been denied. So we obviously hope that it will continue to be denied. That's what I hope. And so whenever I send my application at the time that they're doing it, I always send all those signatures that came, just to show it's not just me, a victim, saying I don't want these guys. They're not actually worthy of being in society, and none of us want them. So thank you for those of you who do sign the petition, and I do make sure that they get to see that it's thousands of people as well as me who don't want them to come out.
Waar kan mense meer lees oor jou en jou miskien boek as 'n inspirasiespreker as hulle sou wou?
On my website, which is Alison, alison.co.za, and you can contact me there, the emails and everything, and then I will be in touch with you. There are agents who support me as well. It was difficult through lockdown with no events and no anything, so it's wonderful again to now have the opportunity of traveling and speaking to people from small groups to large. It is what helps me feel better about what happened to me, and I would love to meet some of you.
Alison, jy is 'n lewende held. Baie dankie dat jy jou storie steeds vandag met die wêreld deel. Jy het so groot verskil gemaak, en jy het daai aand het jy 'n held nodig gehad. En dit was die held wat jy geword het, en nou is jy dit ook verander, en ander kan dit vir hulle self wees. So baie dankie. Jy het jou ou storie agtergelaat, en jy het in 'n nuwe once upon a time ingestap, en ons kom leer, if nothing ever changed, there would be no butterflies. So baie dankie vir jou tyd vandag.
Pleasure, Francois. Thank you.